It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Jason Sherwood, and today I have an amazing panel where I will try my hardest not to mansplain, though I'm pretty sure my cancel letter is already in the mail. So speaking of my panel, let's go ahead and get right to them. On the far left there, we've got Cindy Plaza. Cindy, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing just fine. And it's not at the afternoon for me, so uh
Well, yeah, but
but
the YouTube
yeah,
doesn't
it's
know
going
that.
to be a nice show. I'm sure of that.
Excellent. Yeah, I really hope that it's going to be a great show for us. And we also got August coming back. August, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Jason. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Just enjoying this nice afternoon that YouTube has experienced, or late evening for the rest of us. But whatever. So this show, it is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about France's far right setback. Apparently, the U.S. isn't the only ones having a little bit of issues with that. Our second segment: does education cure faith? Okay, well, yeah, that will be that's going to be a very interesting discussion. Third one is Texas poops on the Johnson Amendment. Um, yeah, that's Texas. You got some work to do. And then our fourth is we're going to explore one person's journey from Hindu nationalism to being a humanist. So, with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news that we discuss are available in the description down below. And remember that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the Nonprofits Facebook page every Friday for a list of the articles ahead of time. I personally create that list and really hope that everybody gets to read that and come into these shows just prepared and ready to go. All right, so for our first segment, we're going to be talking about France's setbacks going into far right nationalism. And I think our resident French person should go ahead and lead us off. So, Cindy, what have you got?
Yeah, so it's this is an article from the New York Times from about a week ago, and it talks about a sanction taken by the lower chamber of the French Parliament towards a representative whose name is Grégoire de Fournas, after what we can say is a very, very racist comment. Um, Now, you know what? Let me rephrase that because it means that there are not so much racist comment, and no, everything is racist. So yeah, he said something very racist. We're going to see what, and there's been a battle in the last 3 weeks between France and Italy regarding a migrant boat called Océan Viking, containing 234 migrants, um, and each country telling the other one that they have to take the boat and the migrants. Um, this boat has been rescued by an NGO called SOS Méditerranée. That's basically what they do. They go around in the Mediterranean and they rescue migrant boats pretty much every week. And so while a black representative from a leftist party, Carlos Martens Bilongo, was talking about the boat, Grégoire de Fournas shouted, "Back to Africa." And so because of that, he's been expelled from the chamber for 2 weeks and lost half of his income for 2 months. So while it's fair to say that it's impossible to tell from the words he used if he was talking about migrants or the representative, or maybe both, it's just one more proof that the sanitization of the far right party by Marine Le Pen is just publicity. In reality, the people in this party are very, very much racist, xenophobic, and quite often anti-Semitic as well. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I'll jump in here. The first thing I want to point out is the quote punishment that he received. I think that, like you mentioned, Cindy, the fact that he only lost his salary for let's see, he got barred from the building for 2 weeks and deprived of half of his pay for 2 months. For the comment that he made, I really do not think that's an adequate punishment, except especially for someone who is in a position of power like he is. It's a start, and I think it's more than many countries would do in terms of punishment. But as the article states, even if he was just talking about the boat carrying migrants, it's racist regardless. It's racist no matter what. So, and arguably, it's almost worse if he's talking about the migrants, right? Because that's not even your political opponent that you're trying to oppose by being racist to. That's you being racist against migrants. You know what I mean? I think it doesn't help your case by saying, oh, he's just being racist to the migrants. I also want to mention that the next president of the party that this man comes from is a 27-year-old. His name is Jordan Bardella. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And is that right, Cindy? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I was doing some digging on his beliefs, and he wants to restore the national borders, even though his family migrated to France from Italy in the 60s. He claimed Facebook was censoring him when they restricted his account after his racist comments made on the platform. And he weirdly doesn't want to make gay marriage illegal. So that's a bonus, I guess. And he doesn't want France to leave the European Union, but he does want to leave the free movement zone of Europe. So not the greatest views by any stretch of the imagination. Jason, what do you think?
Well, I would say that what he said is, again, racist because it was migrants, but it would be racist if they were citizens. It would be racist if they were, just coming over on a work visa. It would be racist if they're going on vacation. You don't need to tell people to go back to wherever they came from, because it ultimately is racist. There's no two ways about it. And when I was reading this article, it was just, I'm like, that was the first sentence, and I'm like, are you kidding me? How is this something that's possible? And August, as you said, the punishment fitting the crime. I mean, he is getting far worse than I feel he would be getting in the United States. At worst, he would have gotten sanctioned. And if anybody knows what sanctioning in the United States House of Representatives or Senate is, it's pretty much, dude, you're sanctioned. So he wouldn't be losing money. He wouldn't be, kick him out of the chambers. Are you kidding me? How are they going to completely screw over the country if they don't vote? So that's not something that you would see here. So I applaud France for actually holding them accountable. But the fact that this is something that is on the rise, this is a party that has been growing steadily. and something that's happening all over Europe. Even Germany has had some far right growth in there. Starting in 2017, although they realized what far right national radicals did in World War II, and it's like, oh no, let's go ahead and scale back a little bit. But Cindy, I think you had something else you wanted to add.
Yeah, on top of being racist, it's inhuman. That's something we don't insist enough on, because yeah, it's not like they were on a cruise ship and then decided to stop by and stay. No, they were almost about to die and they were rescued, and then that's what happened. But yeah, France is often viewed abroad as cosmopolitan culture, very diverse. When you see our national teams, like soccer, for example, there are quite a few black people in there. And so people think that racism in France um, is less important than it actually is. It's still very, very much present, although it's much less systemic than in the US. You don't have this political and systemic uh, operation, and like with the police, and it's um, it's very different. It's very different. It's much more directed towards North American people rather than just black people, um, because of history with um, Algeria, especially. But yeah, France is a conservative country, uh, culturally conservative, not religiously conservative. And that's why the far right movement we see right now in the world works so well in France. It's because the conservative ideas are the fuel for um, nationalism. They call to French exceptionalism, which is quite strong in our culture, and it turns it into nationalism or hyper nationalism. They built a mythical story of the country. Like, I don't know if you've seen the comics Asterix. It's the Gallic resisting to the Roman invader again and again and again, thanks to a magic potion, and that's basically the image that the far right built of the French history, and that's why um, part of the reason why the far right is gaining traction here.
I mean,
August?
I would argue that U.S. history and systemic racism is probably a little bit worse than you're going there. But August, what else did you have?
Well, I just want to bring up a very scary point that the article brings up. It said that in the last election, only 8 members of this National Assembly Party had places in a 577 seat lower chamber of their government. And now there was 89 seats. That is a gigantic climb. And that is over, Cindy, that's over a short period of time, right, between the elections. So that,
Yes, it's over one election. Yeah.
yeah, that's insane to go from 8 to 89. They went from basically being insignificant and not heard from at all to being, it says, the second biggest political party. That is scary. That
Yeah,
is terrifying.
here in the U.S., we've got our candidates that are definitely far right. Right now, we have 2 major loud ones in Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert.
I
And
was going to name
unfortunately,
maybe 5.
yeah, I mean, well, they're the loudest ones. Obviously, there are far more that share their views. They're a little bit quieter, but those are the two that are loudest and proudest about it. And that's the thing, is that we've had a steady buildup over the years. We didn't have, like, over just one election, all of a sudden there's a huge floodgate. We have kind of a little bit of ebb and flow of hatred, if you will, and it's still something that's scary. And the fact that it happened over one election in France, hopefully we do not see that here in the US, and hopefully other countries do not see it where they're at. I am concerned that this whole conservative nationalist movement is starting to gain traction overall. And again, France themselves saw firsthand what happens when a nationalist government decides that they want to invade. And I would just, say to them again, recognize what's happening and fix yourselves. Just kick those nationalists out before you're doing salutes that are very, very uncomfortable.
Right. And also to add on to the fact that it went from 8 to 89 people, it also says that the National Rally, this far right extremist party, is set to receive 10 million euros of public funding. 10 million euros. Money is what brings a lot of power, in addition to having places in the government. So now not only do they have say in the government, they also have money to do things and to, I don't know if lobbying is illegal there, but corruption exists and people don't really care about the law. Clearly, I'm not exactly sure the rules and the laws in France, but money in that kind of at that level is troubling, in addition to the massive gain of seats. And I think this isn't just an idea anymore. This isn't just a fringe group. This is now the second largest party. And France is a powerful nation. I mean, they could do some stuff if they wanted to. And we can't shy away from this. We can't just say, oh, well, it's not that bad. We say that every time, and it's a terrible saying, but the frog in the boiling kettle kind of analogy is, it's gonna be slow changes, and then next thing you know, it's horrific. So it's troubling to see from other countries that have power like France does.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue their power ranking overall in the EU, but they do have very, very strong influence. Them and Germany, very strong influence. And again, I applaud Germany for going ahead and recognizing what's happening. We just need, France to go ahead and recognize what's happening as well. What do you think, Cindy?
I think it's going to be harder in France than it was in Germany, because um, as soon as World War II was over, Germany started right away to do its job um, to denounce and cure its country from the Nazis. France didn't do that because we had Marshal Pétain, who um, decided to cooperate with the Nazis, and he sent some Jews to them. So we France is a bit like the U.S. in this term. It's that we tend to shy away a little bit from accepting what we did in the past, like in Algeria as well. It's very hard in France to say, okay, we did this and we need to make those actions so that it doesn't happen again. Germany did it. They voted laws against everything that hypernationalism and Nazi in appearance or in name or in whatever. France never did that, and now we have this. And I don't know tools we have to fight this, because the 89 representatives were elected, and the 10 millions were given by the government, because in France there is no private money in elections. It is all public funded, and it depends on the results of your previous elections. So as soon as you have a lot of people elected, then you get the money to manage your party that goes with the number of people that were elected. So um, I think it's a very very good system compared to the US. It prevents you from having big lobbies like the NRA making laws and buying senators for life. Um, but yeah, I don't see how we can fight this, because Marine Le Pen is not even the worst. Uh, there was another candidate in the general election this year, and he was much worse than her. So I don't know. I'm ashamed of what France has been moving towards in the last 15 years, 20 years. Um, that's why I will stay in Belgium probably until my last days. But on the other hand, I just can't help but wondering what we can do to fight back. And right now, I have no idea.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, not being in France and not studying their political system nearly as much, but they are a democracy of some stripe, and so I would say educate the people. Show them what's happening, show them what could happen. Let them know that there is a history of this. It is not a good history. It is a very very dark history, and that if things don't change for the better, that everybody could be in a whole world of pain. And to get to like the whole, because we were talking on like the conservative side of things with the uh, rally party. The other thing is that there's also a far left group called France on Bode, and it's kind of, I would say that France on Bode is kind of like our Antifa, only in that France on Bode really kind of exists versus Antifa being a loose collection of not a whole lot. And a lot of French people, 39%, think that the far right party is good to go with, while France on Bode is considered a more harmful party that really hasn't done a whole lot. So again, we're seeing a lot of parallels between France and the U.S., but let's not even call it that. Let's just call it, the rise of this nationalism that is inherently completely dangerous for the world. And August, I'm going to let you have the last word on this one.
Well, another thing I wanted to mention is that as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, the US system of government and how, especially for electing the president, whoever wins the popular vote sometimes doesn't even matter, as we saw with Trump in 2016. Sometimes it's just electoral college votes. And France, as far as I know, doesn't have that. And what that tells me is that it's the people that were voting those people in. And it wasn't just, oh, well, this place has more electoral college votes, so that even though most people disagree with this, it's, still going to be enacted in government, and more people will get into government that are in these far left or right, but especially the right, honestly. These are the French people that are voting for these people, as far as I'm aware, and that is also terrifying. It's bad either way. It's bad if you are voting and you feel like your vote doesn't matter because of the fact, like, especially I live in a red state, and I still vote because I have hope. Maybe that's too optimistic, but it's sometimes you feel like your vote doesn't count, but this is the people voting for this. And so I think that adds to the terror here. And Jason, I think you mentioned that we need to try to do something here before it's too late, because we've seen time and time again how these, our country first and we're better than everyone else. And that's coming from someone who lives in the US. I mean, heck, we have so much problems with that, but we need to get this under control before it becomes more of a problem, because I don't want to know what happens if they get the majority and they have all this funding. And it's also about changing the minds of the people. Unfortunately, in the US, we have a Supreme Court that is now changing laws and interpreting the Constitution in certain ways that are putting us citizens in a place where most of us disagree with their choices, and yet we just have to deal with it because these are people we didn't elect, but that's just how our system works. So I think it's terrifying either way, but to know that the majority, at least, of the French people that are voting for this, I saw a statistic that also said that like 39% of the French people that were surveyed said that they think that the National Rally is good to rule or govern, I guess is a better word. So I think that's pretty scary. That's 40% of people. So I don't know. We need to do something about it.
I agree. And if you don't think your vote counts, just look at this last election, the midterm elections. That red splash or that red wave,
Red
to quote
droplet.
Stephen Colbert, was more like a pink splash, like when you wash your
No, I
clan
voted.
robes with
I
your
don't
MAGA
care.
hat.
I don't really care. I'll vote regardless. It's my right to vote, and I'm old enough to. And you know what? Maybe one day it'll matter, and I'm not going to throw away my vote. I feel like throwing away your vote is the same as voting for the opposition. So I don't know.
So I do want to take a moment to thank our veteran viewers and our new viewers for getting us over 11,000 subscribers. And if you're watching and you haven't subscribed on to the channel yet, get on that. And also click like on this video and ring that bell to let you know when more videos come out, because it really, really does help the channel and helps us get the word out. Then go ahead and share the link to our channel to your friends, your family members, co-workers, anybody that you feel comfortable with, anybody you don't feel comfortable with. Maybe they need to have a little bit of idea of what goes on in the secular minds. Anyone and everyone. So let's get the word out. And, doing so helps us with the fundraisers, where 100% of the proceeds go to the ACA. Google does not take any type of money from that. And are you aware that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen to episodes of Hey, the Nonprofits, the flagship show of the ACA, the Atheist Experience, of course, Secular Sexuality, all the other ACA productions, so that you don't miss a single episode. All right, so we are going to move on to segment 2, which does education cure cure people's faith? Not necessarily. Moving on. I'm sorry. The booth is telling me that we do need to talk about this. So, August, why don't you lead us off on this, since you are our resident student?
All right. Well, our second segment here is coming from, we have 2 different articles here. One is from Religion News Service, and it was published November 10th of 2022, so pretty recently. And it is by Ryan Burge. Sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciation. But I think to preface this, like Jason mentioned, it depends, and it goes over the different statistics that are found. Some of the data is from 2021, and then from Pew Research, we have stats from well, the article was published in 2017, but the stats, it looks like, were conducted in 2014. So we have a little bit of a gap in the time frame of the data here, but it basically goes over the correlation or lack thereof of religion and your level of education relating to high school, some college, a lot of college, and graduate or graduate degrees. So it's kind of wishy-washy, and I do want to mention that the person who published on the RNS page is a political science professor, but he's also a Baptist church pastor. So do with that what you will. And it's really hard to erase bias in this, and there's so many different factors to look at. But yeah, I don't know. Jason, what do you think?
So the reason why I started off like, no, let's not have this. The articles are problematic. Now, I will say that there are a lot of numbers. There are a lot of graphs. Don't really know the sampling size and don't know all the variables. And so that's why this doesn't really pass the sniff test all that well. These articles have me a little concerned, especially from being religious news service and the Pew Research. Pew Research, even though it is a religious organization to some extent, they do seem to be less biased than some of the others. But the religious news service, it really does kind of reek of biasness, of trying to obfuscate some additional stuff. And yeah, as August pointed out, one article was from this year. That was the Religious News Service. The other one from Pew Research was from 2017. And so having that 5.5-year difference where we have vastly conflicting conclusions and all that, it's again, I have no idea where all this is coming from. And so when you read the first article, is it saying that, atheists actually are big old dummies because, a lot of them don't have the higher degrees allegedly. And no, that's not the conclusion you can come from this, because I have known a lot of smart people. I've also known a lot of, not so smart people who are atheists. And it's like any walk of life. It's completely dependent upon where they're at. But Cindy here actually went a little bit deeper, and I want to hear what she has to say about some of the things that she found.
Yeah, so personally, I will go with the one sentence from the 2017 article. It says, and the new analysis of Pew Research Center surveys shows that the relationship between religion and education in the United States is not so simple. And I think that's the most important point to make here. We're always trying to make easy connection, easy conclusions, easy arguments, but yeah, life doesn't work that way. Uh, Atheists need to live uh, outside those dumb statements like theists are crazy, theists are stupid, theists are lazy thinkers. Those generalizations will lead us nowhere, and that goes also for the theists towards us. But regarding those specific studies, it's hard to draw definitive conclusions in a country where there is still a stigma around admitting you're an atheist. So we, we we can be sure about those numbers as it was declarative. People were saying, yes, I'm an atheist, yes, I'm a believer, etc. So we know by definition that in the US, part of the population will not say that they're an atheist if they're not out um, with their family and friends. And so that skews the data already. Then there's the uh, geographic involved, when we know for a fact that religiosity is higher in rural areas, which also tend to be less educated. And I didn't see that taken into account in the studies. What is indisputable is that the later in age religion is taught, the less it sticks in the mind of the person on average. Religious belief taught at a young age make it hard for the kids to differentiate fiction from reality. And for that, I linked down below a couple of studies that shows that this is the case and how and why. How they managed to show some correlation between the religiosity at age 5 to 6 and the ability to differentiate characters and events to know whether they are fiction or real. And there's a good reason for that. All animals on the planet are wired to believe that whatever their parents tell them is the truth, because in nature, if you don't listen to your parents when you're a child, you don't survive. And this is what causes our collective attraction to strong men. There's a reason why um, people who project a strong image are get so much reverence, like Trump did, like all the dictators, and that leads to authoritarianism. And God is just one step further. He's the strongest father figure possible. So it's just the natural line of thinking, and we can't make any assertion on the intelligence of the person because of that, because it's so much deeply wired in our brain that we cannot say, okay, because you believe in a god, then you're stupid, or because you're educated, then you shouldn't be believing. There are too many thought patterns involved in this to be able to draw such conclusions.
Yeah, Cindy, and you said something that I want to just parrot, 1,000 times, and I don't know if I've brought up in every show, but I know I brought it up in a lot of shows. And you said that atheists like to think, blanket statement. Some atheists like to think that people with religious thinking, that they're lazy, that they're stupid, and that is so far from the case. That is so far from the case. You cannot not assume that. Just because you call yourself an atheist, just because you have the beliefs of no God, and you try to look at the world objectively, does not make you the arbiter of reason. I don't consider myself the arbiter of reason. I have made mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. I try to make myself better for the next time around. And I think that anybody who says, oh, this person is lazy, this person is dumb, this person is this, that, and the other thing, that they really need to take a look at themselves to figure out where that is coming from, so that they can say, oh, that's a mistake. I should not be making that again. So I just really wanted to highlight that, because that is such a very, very important thing. August, what else you got for us?
Well, I want to say that maybe the second most important point is something that is drilled into every STEM major that goes into college. Correlation does not equal causation. And what that means is that before you look at any data, just because things are related or seem to be caused by one another does not mean that they are necessarily caused by each other. They could be, but they could also not be. And so you can't say, oh, well, these two things are related, therefore we can conclude that one causes the other. No, you have to prove that it's caused by the other. So for example, they say, oh, ice cream sales go up in the summer. Well, so do deaths by drowning. Therefore, eating ice cream causes drownings. Or if you consider the factors, obviously we can see that that's nonsense. That's one of the more extreme examples of just because you eat ice cream doesn't mean you're going to drown. It's that ice cream sales go up in the summer, and so do the counts of drowning, because in the summer it's warmer, people are swimming, etc. So just because two things seem to be caused by one another does not mean they are. And I think that's the second most important point. And just off of the top of my head, as I was reading this, I was just screaming this phrase over and over in my head. And just off the top of my head, here's a few things that I think were not included in this that definitely need to be considered before you can say one is caused by the other. So one thing was that people with more money are probably more likely to get an education. So are we looking at the socioeconomic demographics as well? Because that can play a part. And what kind of college educations are we talking about here? Are we talking about psychology majors? Are we talking about physics majors? Are we talking about math majors, business administration, something of that effect? Those are vastly different. And some of those educations, while I there's nothing wrong with getting an art history major or becoming a teacher, having education, but at the same time, we can't put that at the same, I don't think it's fair to put that on the same playing field as, and also theocracy can also be taught as a college major too. So
Ken
we
Holman
can consider
and
that.
his PhD.
Right. And then I also think that there are plenty of private universities, at least in the United States, that are religious, in which you have to take a certain amount of credit hours in religious studies in order to graduate. Like that's the requirement of some of these private schools. So if we're talking about that, we also have to consider who are the people teaching these classes. Let's say someone is teaching a science class, but they are devoutly Christian. Are they going to leave out the certain aspects or maybe push something about some kind of higher power doing it? Who knows, you know? So I think that's definitely a factor. We also have to, like Cindy mentioned, we have to consider age. You know, when were they taught about religion? Did they grow up in it? Did they find it later? When did they graduate from college? I know several people that are in their mid to late 30s that are in college right now. So are we considering that? And there's also the fact that so many of these people who study these really intensive science or STEM programs, they will just say, well, okay, I believe in evolution, or I accept evolution, actually, is what I've heard other people say, and I like that better. I accept evolution, and, but they'll just kind of go, well, God did it. So that's really not incompatible with a religious belief. I do want to agree with you guys as well, that saying that people are somehow stupid, like, that's so dumb. There's so many different factors. I'm just sitting here screaming. I did find another article too, and this one just made me so angry because it was talking of it's a clearly religious website, and I think it's like the freedom and what is it? The Tradition, Family, and Property. Gotta love it. They were saying that compared to their unchurched peers, youth who are involved in religious organization take tougher courses, get higher grades and test scores, and are less likely to drop out of high school. Wow, congrats. Or it's that religious parents can be more strict. It's that these kids are getting more proper education because a lot of religious people also tend to be kind of wealthy, and they can afford to put the kids in private schools that can sometimes give those harder classes and can push their kids and threaten with a heavenly sky daddy that if you don't get a good grade on this test, he's going to smite you. Like, what are we talking about here? There's too many factors. I think this is a dangerous article for people who don't know what correlation versus causation is. And I'm not saying there's not a causal relationship. There definitely could be. But what I'm saying is that from even though there's so many numbers and it's so convincing, we can't take this and say there is some sort of causation here. We need more data, and there's too many factors, and I don't even think we can begin to cover them all.
Yeah.
So as we get August back, Cindy, give us something really quick, and then we are going to have to move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what August just said about this paper she added. It's pretty obvious from the religious perspective that atheists just want to sin, and so if there's a tendency to drop out from atheists when they get to high school, maybe it's because that's the time when we all start doing drugs, sex, alcohol, rock and roll, and all those very, very bad and hidden things. So that's probably one of the reasons.
You're mentioning the fun things. Okay, you know what? Let's go on and take a little bit of a break in our conversation. And if you didn't tune into the other ACA shows this last week, here's what you might have missed.
What do people mean by this term alpha male?
The term is misappropriated from wolves having an alpha male in the pack, which it turns out is not true. But even so, people aren't wolves. So it wouldn't really have mattered.
Science checks out, yeah.
And they have this idea in the metaphysical market right now that if you have a piece of shungite and you put it by your computer, it'll suck up all the EMF waves so it doesn't affect your health.
Faith is not a reliable pathway to truth, and we can a lot of stuff up relying on faith.
Oh, trust. If somebody quotes to me a Hebrews 1:11, 11:1 one more time, I swear I will stab myself in the right eye.
We're not focusing in this conversation about the politics or the emotions or the philosophical ramifications of transgender people in sports. We're actually talking about the science.
Even if you could prove it to me, I would be the first one to say you're right, and I would no longer be an atheist. But I would still be right here on the show telling everybody that God is not worthy of worship. The God of the Bible, the God of the Quran, the God of these religions is a monster. And if he's real, I am his enemy.
So hey, what are you doing December 15th to the 18th? Because this December 15th and 18th, we are going to have another in-studio live recording and broadcast. And you should really consider joining us in studio at the ACA Free Thought Library for Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience. The doors, they open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday, noon on Sunday. And parking is wherever you can find a spot, after the lot is full. Just a little tip, go around the street. It's not going to be that bad. So we will keep doing a show. We say at the last of the month, but because of holidays, we're doing it a little bit early. The rest of the year is going to be the last last week of the month. And you can check out the atheistcommunity.org for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. All right. So for our next segment, we are going to be going to me, actually. And we're going to be talking about how a Texas church, actually a couple of Texas churches, violated tax law with in regards to the Johnson Amendment. So this article, it comes to us from the Texas Tribune by Jeremy Schwartz. And the Johnson Amendment is really how nonprofits are supposed to comport themselves when in regards to politics. And it basically says that no charitable organization, including the Atheist Experience or the ACA itself, can pick a particular topic or a particular candidate. It's been a sticking point for a lot of people, and it's something that I'm glad that we're talking about now. And we are actually going to be planning on doing a little bit more in-depth show on what nonprofits can and cannot do. So if you're not subscribed, you definitely want to get subscribed there, because that show I think will be coming out early next year. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the Johnson Amendment. August?
Well, I want to say that this amendment has been around since 1954. This is nothing new. And the specific article that we're looking at was talking about Texas and how the candidates Beto O'Rourke and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's seeking re-election, were going to different houses of worship, and then the church leaders, pastors, priests, whatever you want to call them, they were saying things like, here's Beto O'Rourke, the next governor of Texas. And it's like, ooh, there's really not any subtlety there. That's just straight up. It's like that. Oh, it reminds me so much of that immature thing that kids do where they'll put their finger like right in front of you. And then when you say like, hey, back up, you're too close, like stop touching me, they'll be like, I'm not touching you. And it's like, oh my God, this is so annoying. And I feel like this is what's happening here. And just before anyone says it, I think this about any religious party whatsoever. If you have tax exempt status because you are not supposed to endorse any candidate, I don't want you endorsing any candidate or political party. I don't care if I am your best friend or if I want to vote for you or whatever. It does not matter to me. What matters to me is that if you are getting tax exempt, you need to stay the fuck out of politics. End of story. So the fact that there's so many, it's just they just skate on the line of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And luckily, actually, I was looking, I know that the pastor Greg Locke has gone on just horrendous rants and sermons about political parties, and that literally said if you vote Democrat, you cannot be a Christian at the same time. But actually, weirdly enough, when I did some more digging, he did lose his tax exempt status for that because of the Johnson Amendment. So I guess some people
gave it up. He gave it up.
Right.
Remember?
He doesn't need the communist government. Right. Well, regardless, he's not tax exempt anymore, and that's all I give a fuck about. So I don't know. This is just, it's a great thing, but I think it needs to be expanded to the point where certain things, like you can't introduce a candidate as the next governor of this state. That's endorsing. That is endorsing. How is that not endorsing? So I don't know. There's just a bunch of stuff here that just, it's annoying. But what do you think, Cindy?
So that's a quote that I'm going to give you, that the government has no rights at any time to in any way tell the church who it can have or who it cannot have to speak. It can tell the church what it can preach on or not preach on. This is America, and we believe in a free church, not one controlled by the government. So that's one of the two pastors said. And actually, I agree. I agree 100%. But then that means church have to pay taxes. You can have it both ways. You cannot say, because that's not the point, saying that we believe in a free church and not one controlled by the government. It's not what's happening here. It's not what at stake. What at stake is the tax exempt status. If you want it, then you just don't talk about politics. If you don't want it, or if you absolutely want to talk about politics, then go ahead. Yet I understand the need to have politicians going to speak in churches, especially in rural areas. Many times the church is the center of the community on top of the religious building. So it makes sense for pastors to invite politicians who they think care for their community to talk. Um, it does make sense to me, um, but it's an entirely different thing to attach them to some religious value. Like the second pastor said, the lieutenant governor is someone God has given us at the very top. So that's no longer someone you invite to speak. It's someone you give divine power to, and that's quite different. But yeah, I think the law stands and it should stay. This this Johnson Amendment, I think it should stay. If you want to be exempt of taxes, then you have to prove that you are doing something for the community. And uh, political endorsement is not doing something for the community. It's doing something for yourself and for the party or the person you're trying to endorse. So, no, in my opinion, it's just done deal.
Yeah, and absolutely. And one of the things that you said, about being in rural areas, I mean, historically, there has been quite a bit of social change that came directly out of the church, particularly when you're talking about the civil rights movement. That definitely started in Black churches and then expanded into an amazing movement. And there's really, it's hard to argue against that. And I get that. We've also seen, you're talking about how the bill should stand, or the act should absolutely stand. Although we have seen the previous president, he signed an executive order to scale it back to, quote, defend the freedom of religion and speech. And I'm sorry, but there are a lot of dog whistles in that one. This really all reminds me of several years back in California. California really wanted to practice what they preached on giving equal time to candidates. And there was an episode of the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, so that kind of ages things a little bit, where California had a ridiculous amount of candidates. An absolutely ridiculous amount of candidates, and they could not feature any single one of them without giving equal screen time to all of them. So they cleared out the audience and had every single last candidate, and they would pan the camera over every last one of them. And the ones that the front runners, they did talk to directly, but they had to make sure that everybody had the same screen time. And it was a clown show. It was absolutely ridiculous. But at the same time, they were giving equal opportunity for everyone. In that instance, the Johnson Amendment does say that you can feature people. People can go to these churches. They can do their talks. Just like Cindy said, they can go to these rural areas and talk to the people where they're at. But everybody has to be fully featured. They cannot be told, here is the next governor, here's your next senator, here's your next comptroller, whatever. They all have to have equal time. What have you got, August?
Well, I want to say that while doing some external looking into this, the ACLJ .org put out an article titled "How the Johnson Amendment Threatens Churches' Freedoms." And basically they claimed that it's a violation of their First Amendment right, and that it's their freedom of religion is being restricted and the freedom of speech. Can they get the First Amendment out of their mouths if they're not going to read the whole thing? Because it also says Congress may not establish a national religion, but you guys are trying your fucking damnedest to do that. So read the whole damn thing, would ya? And man, I'm reading this article and it made me mad at first. It was written in 2016. listen, it's not restricting your religious freedoms. You can do what you want. You just can't be tax exempt. That's the difference. You can say whatever the fuck you want to say. And if you're not 501c3, who gives a shit? I mean, obviously I don't necessarily support it, but in terms of legality, you'll be fine. Just pay your damn taxes. They don't want to do that though. They lose money if they do that. They have to contribute to actually helping people in the country. That's really weird. They don't do that. But it's just hilarious how they're like, oh, well, you're restricting my freedoms. And it kind of reminds me of the people who were unvaccinated and lost their jobs for it. And then they were saying that it was taking away their rights. And it's like, there's lots and lots of jobs where you have to have certain qualifications or else you can't have that job any longer. Like, are we going to say that drug tests are also not allowed? If it's a private business, they can fire you, well, in certain states, but they, I don't know, man, this is just, in certain states,
I haven't been to medical school. Why can't I do brain surgery? I should be allowed to do brain surgery. It should be my right? And anybody who doesn't want to pay a massive brain surgeon should be able to pay me much less to tinker on in their brain. That's right.
Yeah.
Right? That makes all the sense in the world. And
you're forcing me to get vaccinated. Nope. You just can't be around vulnerable people in a hospital setting that have compromised immune systems if you refuse to get the jab, as they like to call it.
It is my right to get people sick, apparently.
Right.
Because that's how this country works now.
Right. And it's you have the right to not get vaccinated, but you don't have the right to not get vaccinated and then keep a job that requires you to be vaccinated to have it. Go find another job. Isn't that kind of what they always say, though? Find a different job. Oh, it's weird. Or go get a job, even though we are working, but whatever. So it's hilarious that they're whining about this. And they even put in bold and italics, the effect of favoring a candidate or groups of candidates is prohibited. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what that means. Like, just give up your tax status. Greg Locke did it. Come on, guys. Really? Cindy, how about you?
Had it taken away. What's the difference, really?
Right.
Cindy, what have you got?
Yeah, regarding what you just said about vaccines, there's something that's been bothering me since the beginning of the pandemic is if you've got AIDS and that you have sexual relationships with people and you go there unprotected and you have the disease, then you can be criminally liable. So why is it not different with COVID? Because it's the same.
I would push back on that a little bit.
Almost the same, because you don't have the certainty to give the disease to someone. But
in principle, yes, but also personally, I think that breathing and speaking is a lot more.
Yes, that's
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like, I would push
saying.
back a little bit. I understand the underlying principle of it is the same. One I would argue is kind of worse, but I don't know. There's a lot of nuance there, but
yeah, regarding the tax exempt status, I think we've said everything we could say about this. It's just take it or leave it. You want it? Yeah, you just respect the rules. It's funny to see that how the party of law and order and all those kind of fine sentences they give us, suddenly when law and order applies to them, it doesn't suit them very much. So yeah, it's always hypocritical when it comes from those kind of people.
Yeah. I do want to point out really quick is that they were saying that these are matters of conscience that they're speaking on. And it's like, okay, if your God regulates certain kind of rules for you, shouldn't it be obvious which candidate that your congregation should support? Why are you trying to shove in their face who they should support when in your eyes, morality is objective and written on everyone's hearts? So thought that was interesting, but anyway.
Okay, that an interesting point there as well. I think some other people could argue certain ways on that, but let's not go there. What we can say is that you can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. Click on the join button below the video, which will give you access to special chat emojis. We also have a brand new store. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. You can check out new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. All your ACA shows do feature a special limited item each month. You can check out the store for NP merch and all other merch from the other shows. All right, so it's this show's been going pretty quick because we're already on our last segment. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
and
it's been very, very
Time flies
fast.
when you're having fun.
Yes. And for the last segment, we're still kind of working things out, sussing things out, and we were supposed to have an interstitial. We still don't have one, but what we do have is me making an ass of myself when I say that we're stepping in the right direction. Cindy, take it away.
Nice one. So this article comes from the news website The World, which I had no idea existed so far, and is dated from the 10th of November, which is a week ago. And it talks about a man's journey from Hindu nationalist to humanist. And when I read the article, the first thing that came into my mind was the movie American History X with Edward Norton. I don't know if you saw it. It's a relatively old movie from the 90s, I think. And yeah, it's a great movie. So it's basically a man who was a very, very strong nationalist and was arrested just before almost committing a crime. And so after meeting some people, he became humanist and left these bad ideas behind him. Um, so it's good to see this kind of stories coming from India because we've been talking about this on the show several times. India is leaning very, very strongly towards a nationalist Hindu theocracy, and a very, very nasty one because if you're not Hindu, then you're pretty much dead. Um, so I'm afraid stories like this are not representative of the general direction the country is taking. But hey, every step in the right direction is worth taking. Jason?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Now, as far as this goes, yes, he was thrown in jail due to a plan to take down a mosque. Now, the mosque was actually taken down by the rest of his group. So, unfortunately, the crime still did, in fact, happen, even though he was arrested. While he was in there, his hatred grew. And what kind of pushed him over the edge to go more towards secularism. Unfortunately, I have some concerns about that because it was due to a tragedy in his life, where his sister was tragically taken from him in a car accident, and we have seen where a situation like this, some tragedy, has caused people who've chosen to go towards atheism, chosen not to believe in a God, or have sussed out that there is no God, who have then walked themselves back because they realize, well, wait a minute, a tragedy is not a good enough reason. And unfortunately, I do have to agree with that. A tragedy is not necessarily a good enough reason to not believe in a God, because you can years later go, well, maybe there is a power that caused me to go into this direction. I do hope that he stays in a more humanist direction, even if he does go back to his religion. And so, yeah, ultimately, this is still a step in the right direction for him. And I hope that it is a step in the right direction for India, because as we talked about in another episode, India has historically been largely a secular nation, that they ruled the country based upon secular ideas, that their Hinduism did not dictate their actions. But we are seeing from leaders like Modi, where all of India is sacred land, and if you are going to build on our land from another religion, that's just an insult and a slap in the face. And it's that kind of thinking that tears people down. You know, what are they going to do when they realize, oh, the Taj Mahal, a quote unquote wonder of the world and a beautiful mosque, is, you know, now the target of somebody's ire? It's just absolutely disturbing, and what could potentially happen. What have you got, August?
Well, I want to piggyback off of what you said just for a second and agree that if personal experience is what gets you to release the dogma and indoctrination and begin your journey to finding what is true, then that's fine. I don't think personal experience in and of itself is a good reason to believe, and therefore I don't think it's a good reason to disbelieve necessarily. If that's your starting point, then great, but I think some more investigation should be done with that. I do want to push back a little bit, Jason, on this is probably just me being picky, but I really don't feel like people choose to believe things. So, you know, he might not have chosen to take this path, especially because the culture that he's in, even if he's maybe not surrounded by it as much anymore. I don't know if he said that or not, but I think he probably went through a phase where I think I wrote a note that he went through kind of an angry atheist phase. So a lot of the times you want to believe more than anything and you can't because there's not evidence. But like I said, that's probably just me being picky on your word choice.
Choose to believe is something that I did walk that back a little bit. And it is not a choice, because we do know that belief is not a choice. I did not choose to be an atheist. I saw what was going around me, and yeah, if you, a choice would be whether or not you want to hold on to or not hold on to, if you want to advertise whether or not you're an atheist to your family, to your friends, or whatever, that would be something that a choice. What you believe in is not a choice. It's something that you discover. Cindy, what have you got?
Yeah, beyond religion and politics, the article focuses on the man's shift from hate to love, and they take it a little bit in a poetic sense. But I know this is not really the kind of speech that reaches far right people usually, especially in the current climate in India or in the US or even in France. But I'd like to talk about this specific aspect for a moment, because people don't realize very often when they're drawn into a spiral of hate. It always comes slowly, bit by bit, idea by idea, and almost always from external sources. But hate, it slowly eats you physically, mentally. It drains your energy, it makes you sick, takes you away any happiness you could have. Love is the opposite. It's strength, it's joy, it's happiness. You could say that love is life and hate is death. uh, I talked a few times on different channels about how rational thinking is the combination of emotion management, knowledge, and critical thinking, and that we need to teach all three starting uh, kindergarten. And this is one of the reasons why, because if you understand how emotions can be manipulated and uh, how they drive you, then you can um, take it into account when you think and when you um, elaborate thoughts and they um, incite your actions. So yeah, those three aspects, emotional management, knowledge, and critical thinking, they're all necessary to think more rationally and including emotion management, like I said here. August,
Yeah.
you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. And yeah, I think those are some great points you brought up. I want to mention that I can just see what will happen if the theists or deist people catch on to this and they're like, oh, well, see, look, he just lost his sister in a fatal accident, and then his whole world just changed, and now he's an atheist. And it's like Cindy was saying, it's really gradual, but also it's not so much of, and this is also partially why I started questioning when I was a young teen. It was more of a bad things are happening, evil things are happening, if you choose to use that word in the colloquial sense. Such horrific and abhorrent things are happening in this world, but if you're someone like me, you were told that there's this all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God who wants to have a relationship with you. And then I'm sitting here like, well, why does all the bad happen in the world? It's otherwise, commonly known as the problem of evil. And that was something that I was like, hey, wait, that doesn't really make sense. And people's answer of, well, it's free will, it's we live in a fallen world. That just didn't make sense to me anymore. And so, yeah, sure, it might be tragedies that cause us to think, hey, wait, this world sucks in a lot of ways, but a lot of us don't end there. That is our beginning of the journey, and it we aren't mad at God. It's just that you can't believe that a God is all loving and then see all the evil. I mean, you can, but in my head, it doesn't make logical sense. And the other thing I want to mention that's super duper important, I think, is the fact that this is not necessarily atheism, but humanism. And that's what's being pushed here. And I don't give a shit if you are atheist, theist, deist, if you have multiple gods, whatever. What I care about is that you treat people well and that you care for your fellow man and that you do unto others what you would want done onto you. And otherwise, I don't give a shit. If you treat people well, humanism is so much more important. I don't care if you're atheist or theist or anything else. What I care about is how you treat others. And I think you can get to that point however you wish. Maybe your reasonings aren't good, but at least for now, that's good enough for me. I want people to be treated nicely. And so, Jason, what do you want to add?
I would say that is very well said. And yeah, as long as you aren't a jerk about it and all that, then yeah, go ahead and believe really what you want to believe. I also want to say that nothing in this world hates quite like theist love. Okay, it really doesn't. One other thing I wanted to mention that he said is that if you need God, then God exists, and if you don't need, he doesn't exist. I get what he's trying to say there, but I think it's really weird. It's because if you need a fictional character, that fictional character is with you. No, not quite. I did not lose my religion based upon what you did, August. Seeing the world as I didn't have the problem of evil. I started losing my religion considerably early right around the discovery of Santa Claus, and I just applied that same logic to every other mythical thing. So, it in that regard, it doesn't matter. My path was different than yours, was different than Cindy's, was different than our humanist friend over here. The point is that we all got to where we're going. But we are getting very close to the end. So Cindy and August, we're going to do some quick wrap-ups, starting with Cindy.
Yeah, I wanted to echo what August said about the golden rule. And when I debate theists, sometimes one question I like to ask them is, uh, what criteria do you use to judge the value of a person?
Mm.
And the answer to that question for me is how you treat others. There's
Absolutely.
no other criteria. I don't care about anything else. The only judgment I bear upon someone is how they treat others, and that will define how I will judge you. So yeah, it's the basics of humanism.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
excellent. And August?
Well, I do want to kind of tie in something I said earlier, and I do kind of want to make it clear what I was trying to get across there. I watch the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen pretty much every week when I can get on, and so many people call in saying that morality is objective, and I think humanism kind of relies on the fact that, I don't know, I think you can make certain objective moral considerations possibly, but I think a lot of it can be subjective to some point. And so what I was trying to say earlier is that those people who specifically believe that morality is objective, that's who I was talking to, those people. And if you don't believe that, then I was not referring to you earlier in the other segment. But to end this part with my thoughts is just, yeah, be a humanist, do right by others and take care of each other. And yeah, I think religion pushes a lot of this us versus them and very individualistic culture in terms of, well, this is my in group and you guys are others. And so I think that can get into really, really tricky territory. And it sounds like this individual with in terms of Hindus versus Muslims, it was that kind of us versus them thinking that doesn't really it doesn't really tie in with humanism very much. So I think the fact that he could disconnect from the us versus them is very important, and I think others should think about that as well.
Well said. Well said. And I personally think that, there are people who have problems with morality being subjective. I don't. I think morality can and probably should be subjective because it's something that needs to change with time. What was
Absolutely.
okay 10 years ago, what was okay 20 years ago, which was, isn't okay today. I would also argue it probably wasn't okay back then, but you know what? We're all just learning. We're constantly learning. We're constantly trying to get this thing right. We constantly mess up. As long as we try to do better tomorrow, then yeah, we can have a subjective morality. And I get it. This is a pretty scary time. And for the rest of my panel, it's even worse in a lot of cases. Cindy, you were talking about how hate just drains you, and yes, it can win a few rounds, and it might feel like it's going to win the overall war if you want to use that kind of language. But love and understanding does win out eventually. Good does win out. We've seen nationalism, wither, not necessarily die. It will go away. They'll fester somewhere else and probably come out again. But as long as we keep pushing back against it, then what looks like scary and what looks like it sucks can get better overall. Before we started doing this show, I was checking the news, and it looks like our Congress, our Senate, wants to codify gay marriage. I don't know if it's overall going to happen, but that's amazing. And I really wish we could have covered it. We'll probably cover that next week. So again, subscribe. It sucks, and it's going to get better because it has to. But anyways, let's go ahead and end this show and say that you can join our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofits on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to acd or tiny.cc/acd discord, and on Facebook, as you just saw in the little graphic there, at tiny.cc/fbnp. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/patreonnp. And if you find yourself shopping at Amazon, support the Atheist Community of Austin, even, by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the Atheist Community of Austin as the beneficiary. Be sure to use that link to help out the ACA. We do greatly appreciate that. And we also very much appreciate your feedback. Tell us what you like, what you don't like in the comments down below. You can also email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. Anybody who has been watching this show for any length of time knows that I'm going to be over there in the comments section during the premiere, and I'll also be down in the comments within the first 7 days after this video goes out. And I try to respond to everybody, anybody and everybody. You can also visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org. And you can get the latest on what's happening, and feel free to contact the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org. Cindy, August, this has been an immense pleasure working with both of you. August, I've worked with you several times. Cindy, this is the first time that we have worked together in front of the camera. Usually I'm back behind the camera. So definitely a pleasure working with you. And let's get like a 1 or 2 minute wrap up. Cindy?
Yeah, we've talked about several very different topics today. Sometimes on the nonprofits, it's very much the Catholic Church or religious oppression, or very much focused on 1 or 2 topics. Today was more broad, and I'm glad we get to have some news from outside the US, and we got to talk a little bit about the situation in France, because again, the rise of far-right nationalism is not limited to the US, far from it. Europe is seeing it right now, and I hope we will talk about this more along the way.
All
Yeah.
right. And August?
Just want to say that we should all try to be humanists and try to think about your beliefs and why you believe them, and really take a critical look at them. I think that is a start to any kind of humanist or skeptical mind. So, yeah.
All right. Excellent. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/ytth and call into the show at 512-991-9242, or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.